Alright, so today we're going to be talking about Musket in Endgame for New World Aeternum. Now, I've taken a big break from New World, but now's the time I come back because, I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty excited for New World Aeternum and just jumping back into Fresh Start and getting a solid couple of months of content out of it. With that said, my build guide website is fully updated. We're going to be jumping through some of the builds, some of the changes, and most importantly, how to get in-game gear in the new update, as well as some of the reasons behind some of my changes I've made. So the first thing you're going to notice on the new website is there's a bunch of changes from graphics to just general layout and quality of life. It's much easier flow through now. I've simplified it, and most importantly, the biggest update is I'm expanding beyond just Dex builds. Now, I'm going to be only updating the Dex builds because that's what I understand, but I'm going to be reaching out to other legends in the New World Aeternum space to collaborate with them and bring other top tier builds from other classes to the website. And some of the first builds that are coming to the website from other creators are a Bruiser and Assassin kit. I'm going to be working with Dusty Y on these, and I'm pretty excited about this. He's a fantastic creator, but without further ado, we'll jump into the musket builds, and then later we'll jump into the bow builds, discuss the changes, and what that means for you guys, and how to effectively progress. So we're going to jump into musket. Simply clicking on the icon will load you into the next page. So you'll choose your main hand, and then you'll choose your offhand. If you've used my website before, you probably already understand how it works. If you're new though, it's pretty straightforward. I tried to make it as easy as possible to understand. It's effectively almost like an in-game creator class system, and that is sort of the experience I was going for easy understanding. Anyways, that's not the point of this video to discuss my design. We're jumping onto the actual gear changes and gear acquisition for New World Aeternum. Now, when you first go onto a build page on my website, you're going to be presented with a video. These will be updated with the new videos when New World Aeternum goes live, but they are unlisted right now because I do want to save them for when people are in downtime to have something to watch. But down the bottom here, we have effectively everything that's changed and everything that's updated. So scrolling through, if you're again experienced on the website, you would understand the structure. If you're new, you have your named gear and special crafted gear on the left side column, and on the right side column, you have all of your crafted gear, stats, trees, and consumables. So starting off with, we're on Musket Rapier, and I have a star rating based on my personal preference and how I feel it stacks up against the meta in, for example, Outpost Rush is generally the premise I base my builds off. And if you ever see like a grey icon, you can hover over it and instantly understand what that means, what it is, and that is just, again, more quality of life features that I've added in here. So again, these timeless patterns down here link you to the recipes to craft 725 gear in New World Aeternum, which is only achieved in 2 ways, and only one way to choose all 3 perks, which is Gorgonite gear, which comes from the new Hive of Gorgons raid. So simply clicking on, let's say, the head pattern here, it is going to link us to the Gorgonite mask, which is the light headwear for the Gorgonite mask, and it's going to simply show us the recipe we need to make this item. Now, again, this is the simple quality of life feature I want to have on my website. Any item and any logo you click on my website at all will link you exactly to the source on New World Database. New World Database is a fantastic website made by Zyro, and he absolutely goes crazy with this website. It's a fantastic website. I highly recommend checking it out. If you're new to the game, it is going to give you so much information if you ever need help on something. And again, this links you straight to the recipes for certain pieces of gear and named items, where to get them, and what you need. So, for example, this Gorgonite mask, we need a lot of tier 5, or sorry, 725 gear is very expensive. So you're looking at 100 prismatic cloth, 80 prismatic leather, 30 prismatic ingots, armor matrix, prismatic scarab, and most importantly, the Gorgon essence to craft a 3 perk piece of gear. Now, the best thing about the Gorgonite 725 crafts is, unlike the old Azoth inductors, this gear you don't need any armoring skill or any trade skill level. You at most need a tier 2 station, and you can be, again, level 0 in your profession, which is really nice. But again, they are very expensive to make, so it's going to be a grind getting these pieces of armor. I think at most, you can actually only get 2 pieces of 725 gear a week max. So again, the main standout thing here is, if you're familiar with the game, is the Gorgon Essence. This is a new item that is obtained through the Hive of Gorgons raid, well, it's partly so. We'll follow through the recipe chain in a sec here, but again, to start off with, if you're unfamiliar with New World, these are endgame materials, and if you are curious about these, again, going through that flow-through process, simply clicking on Prismatic Cloth, you'll find out what it's about, and then you can go even further down the chain, and you can see how it works here. So you get linen, you turn that into sateen, you make that into infused silk, into phoenix weave, and then that becomes the prismatic cloth. Sorry if my phone went off there. So it's effectively a hierarchy of upgrading the materials progressively until you get to the highest tier 1. This is how New World's always done their systems. So you start off with the low tier, upgrade it to the max tier. Now, things like prismatic cloth and the prismatic leather and ingots, these are the highest tier materials in the game, and you can only craft 10 of these a day at the specific benches, such as a smelter. You can only craft 10 prismatic ingots a day, but they are buyed on equips, so if you wanted to, you can use gold at the auction house or trade house and obtain more prismatic ingots if you so wish. Now, again, the other important things here to note is, if you're unfamiliar with New World, is the armor matrix, the Gorgon Essence, and the prismatic scarab. So the armor matrix is effectively crafted through, again, various means, much like the higher tier materials. It is done through armoring or arcana. Again, going through that flow through chart on the New World database and then from my website, you can easily narrow down the recipes and effectively get to the root ingredient. And it is really that simple. It's effectively, again, it's a hierarchy, right? You start with this low tier material and then you progress. I'm kind of yapping, but this is the best way for me to explain it, because New World's crafting system is very complex for new players, and the best way I can describe it with some visuals on screen is it's a hierarchy. You start with the tier 1 ingredient, to the tier 2 ingredient, to the tier 3, all the way up to the max level ingredient, and the easiest way to figure out that chain of upgrades is through New World database. So, for example, what is a blessed rivet? We can click on the blessed rivet, and now we can go to the crafting recipes for the blessed rivets, click on that, and now we need these materials to make the blessed rivets. We need, prismatic ingots. We know what that is now. So we need gypsum orbs. That's another ingredient. There's a lot of systems here and a lot of ingredients that eventually you will come to understand. But at the base level, using New World database as a reference to understand the chain or the hierarchy of upgrading is a very good asset. I'm not going to go through every single ingredient here because it does get very complex. I just want to have a little bit of an in-depth talk about how the progression of ingredients goes. And again, at this point, I'm just kind of yapping. But again, you could click on the gypsum orbs and figure out where they come from. Oh, cool. It comes from the faction vendor. There's actually also a bunch of other ways to get gypsum orbs in the game. So you can get them from quests, from a bunch of different stuff. I think once you've completed the Brimstone quest chains, you will come out with 50 or so gypsum orbs. And then you could also, I believe, buy 6 a day or 5 a day from your faction vendor. So there is a lot of ways to get those. But again, just using New World database and clicking through the crafting recipe tab, finding out the root of something is going to be your best friend when understanding this game at a deeper level. Now, we're just going to quickly back out here and go to the Gorgon Essence, because this is a new material that is probably something that a lot of you haven't heard of or seen, even if you're a current player of New World. This is an item that is made through the new raid ingredients, which is from the Hive of Gorgons raid. So I'm going to click on the Gorgon Essence here, and you can see that it requires a Gorgon Eye and a Gorgonite Inductor and the Aqua Rager. Now, these are 3 new ingredients, the Gorgon's Eye and the Gorgon Inductor. You'll be able to get, I think, 1 of each per week. Actually, it might be 2 Gorgon's Eyes. I'll have to double check that. In fact, we can actually diagnose this right now. So we can see that it comes from Hive of Gorgons, dropped by 3 bosses. So it looks like you might be able to get 3 of these per week, and that is your cap out. So there is a lot of time gating in the new 725 gear score in-game, which is a little bit annoying, but this seems like the path the developers want to take. So effectively, you are going to get a Gorgon's Eye 3 times per week. Gorgonite Inductor is once per week, I know that for sure. And then Aqua Rager is made through Arcana. We can diagnose that recipe here. So you can see that it needs salt, water, saltpeter, water, and alkahest. This is a pretty cheap recipe. And I believe they're bind on equip as well, so you will instantly be able to buy them off the trade post for gold if you really wanted to. So I wouldn't really worry about that. The main two things you want to worry about, though, is that Gorgonite Inductor and Gorgon's Eye. However, I also do believe the Gorgon's Eye is a bind on equip item, which means you will be able to buy it off the trade post, probably for a hot price though. But the Gorgonite Inductor is bind on pickup, and it's once per week. So that is your main sort of breakdown of how a recipe works in New World Aeternum, and specifically for crafting 3 perk bits at 725. You're looking at maxing out at 2 pieces of 725 per week, which is a very slow grind, but I guess that's the dev's way of saying, hey, we're going to keep you locked into playing for longer through our time gates. Anyways, we've broken down recipes for enough here and how they work. Let's jump back into the actual juice of the build. So, one of the new perks introduced with the New World Aeternum is Disdained Infliction. You can see it on the musket here. What Disdained Infliction does is it increases the potency of damage over time effects, so bleeds, burns, etc. And it also extends the duration of them by 5% every time you hit that target consecutively with a 1-second cooldown. These perks sound pretty complex, but in generality they are actually pretty simple. It simply means you hit the target and you get to extend your dot duration. It's that simple, and is a very strong perk with that increased potency of the dot itself, which makes the bleed build insanely strong for Musket alongside the powder burn ability. So again, we're stacking that keenly jagged as we always do in our past Musket builds, and we're tacking on Abyssal Attunement, of course, for a straight up extra 14% base damage at a 1.5 second cooldown. I think it also has been nerfed from a 1 second to a 1.5, unless it was always like that and I haven't played in a while. But anyways, again, if you're ever curious about something on the build guide website, you can simply click on it, and again, it will take you straight to New World DB. You can figure out what it is. If you played New World before, you probably know what gems are, but it's always good to mention these things in case there are new people that are watching this and you are curious about something. Don't be afraid. You can always also reach out to me on my Discord, and I'm happy to answer questions. But again, you can also just click on an item, click on a link, and it'll take you straight to what that item is, and you can read about it and learn what to do and how to get said item. Again, jumping onto the right here, the perks are staying pretty much the exact same for the armor. We're running the Void Harnessing Elemental Aversion Health, Omnidirectional Evade, and Crippling Powder Burn. In my past builds, I always had Crippling Powder Burn on the musket, but we needed to make room for Disdained Infliction. And on that note, Crippling Powder Burn on weapon actually caught a big nerf. I can't remember the exact percentages, but it was a pretty sizable one to the very least of things. So anyways, this is the current perks we're using on our armor, and it is very similar to the past builds. Nothing's really changed there. Again, the biggest change to the musket builds from past seasons is the new Disdained Infliction perk that we're building around, and of course the actual in-game progression of getting 725 gear. Now, jumping down, we are also packing the Disdained Infection or Disdained Infliction on the Rapier. Seems like I have a bit of a mistype there, that is my bad. But the big thing that comes from having 725 gear is we get 40 extra stat points. It might actually be a little bit more than that with the Attune Leather Pants, I can't remember. It was like 43 or 42 or something like that. I just rounded it up, so you actually have a few more stat points than this image shows here. I think 5 or 6 more stat points. But in general, this is the stat split that I'm going to be running. Also, don't be afraid to find your own stat split. Like, again, with my builds, these are my builds, right? I'm not saying, hey, you should run this, you must run this. This is what I know works well and works well for me. So if you want a baseline and then you want to modify it to your own needs, absolutely go for it. Because if you stick to a build that is just mine, you're probably going to have more problems. Like, what I'm trying to say is make it your own. Don't be afraid to branch off if you feel like something is going to work better for you. And that is specifically true for the trees down here when we get to that. Do not be afraid to try something new. Like, that is the best thing about New World, and why I love this game, and why I make all these build guides, is the freedom and build diversity in New World is unmatched. Like, there is hundreds of musket builds that are possible, but I only cover a few of them because I have only limited time to make builds for some of them. You know, I try to make as fun, quirky builds as I can, as in my past seasons, but it takes a lot of time, and I can't cover all of them, and you may have a build that is your own, that you play well with. That's the whole fun of this game, and how it has skill over gear. So anyways, jumping through this, you get 40 extra stat points. You can pump that into int, con, whatever you want. This is the stat split I'm going to be aiming for. Scrolling down, we have the trees, which are very, very different from Season 5. If you've played Season 5, you would have noticed that we used the lethal combo because they made it so lethal combo works on every ability on the tree. But it recently got a nerf going into New World Aeternum, which is pretty sad, and it has now meant that the left side talent is, again, the best perk to have on the musket tree. Now, if you're wondering why, it is because we are stacking bleed. The reason why we want to use that perk is because we get that extra bleed on a penetration target. So if we shoot through one enemy and it hits the enemy behind, that is going to proc a bleed. And while using Disdained Infliction on our musket, that 15 second bleed from the left side ultimate is going to become a 30% increased bleed on that penetration target, which is pretty OP, and is a very, very good reason to run this perk on the left side of the tree. Again, you could try running lethal combo again. You could also try dropping stopping power for shooter stance. You know, there's, again, things that you can try and do for yourself. Don't follow me to a T. I wouldn't recommend it, and I would recommend finding your own way, your own build, your own perks. But this is what I'm going to run. This is what I've tested and I feel the most comfortable with, especially going to the new meta. But yeah, this is what I like. I'm kind of repeating myself here, but anyways, moving on. We've got the classic chain leather pants. Even with all of the new artifacts introduced, this is still easily the best musket perk artifact, especially since Nature's Wrath got nerfed as well. Nothing comes close to a chain leather pants still. It is unbeatable. The amount of extra stat points you get for DPS is just still absolutely mental. So yeah, nothing even comes close still. And scrolling down just a little bit more, we're still using the Endless Thirst. Fantastic artifact. Still really strong. Absolutely love it. Consumables haven't changed. There's no new consumables to worry about with New World Aeternum. And yeah, that is the two trees here. They did kind of rearrange the musket and rapier tree, by the way. I forgot to mention that. It goes in like a weird L now. But they're all the same perks, and there's no real actual changes at all, really, other than that lethal combo nerf. But yeah, that is pretty much the trees there. Scrolling down past the Endless Thirst, we have the Amulet. Now, the Amulet comes from the Worm Raid. Now, this is a very, very nice Bis Amulet. It's the same as the old ones we run, except it is a named item now. And you can get it from Sharnishan, the Devourer, which is a boss with, I think, 44 million HP, a 20-man raid. And you're going to want to be doing that raid weekly. I do want to tack that in here. That raid weekly is going to net you 400 dark matter, which at the start, a fresh start, is going to be essential because you're not going to have any dark matter to start off with. So I highly recommend getting your raid groups ready and actually doing the Worm Raid, as it is going to be very beneficial to you with the amount of dark matter that the artifact upgrades to, especially. In fact, I'll just show you guys. I think I have it linked here. Yeah, I've got all of these 725 artifact upgrades attached onto the links here when you click on the item. It requires 600 dark matter for one artifact upgrade, 5 gypsum orbs, and 1 chromatic seal, and then 1 apex crafting material. This is actually something I will mention on the recipe section and acquisition stuff again. So, Goldcrest, Coconut, and Gorgonite Inductor. Now, we already have taken note that the Gorgonite Inductor comes from the new Hive of Gorgons raid, But what the fuck is a gold cursed coconut? Now, this is an item that comes from the Lawless Zone, or the PvP zone, located in the bottom lefts of Cutlass Keys. This item is once per week, just like the Gorgonite Inductor, and it is going to also allow you to craft or upgrade a 725 artifact of your choice. This ultimately is the reason on how you are able to get 2 pieces of 725 per week. So look out for that. And effectively, again, you just have to go into the PvP zone once per week and loot a chest. You will not lose the Gold Cursed Coconut on death. That is only the Misted Doubloons, which is at a 50% drop rate anyways. Going back to the website here, we'll scroll down. So we've, again, figured out that the Sharnician Amulet comes from the Devourer. Scrolling down, we then have the Hoplite Ring, which is a best-in-slot bloodletting ring, which is from the Hive of Gorgons raid. I also forgot to mention the Hoplite gear is named items from the new Hive of Gorgons raid. So you're also going to want to run that Hive of Gorgons at least once a week to get all of your drops as well. Now, rewards from the Hive of Gorgons are actually also limited to once per week. So you're probably wondering, what happens if I get unlucky and I don't get the named Hoplite Ring from my weekly run? That is where a really cool item comes in. If I go to the raid here, we can scroll down. I think it's in here. We'll just quickly search it up. Token. Nope. If I go over here, I'm just going to quickly search up Hive of Gorgons. It shows it there, but there is a pity item that is guaranteed to give you named items if you get very unlucky. Now, I expect to be very unlucky from past situations in games where drops are RNG and gate kept at the same time. If you knew the syncretic musket grind for me, that was a bit of a pain. But moving on from that, the Hive of Gorgons token is a pity system that you will get 10 of per run. So effectively, if you get very unlucky after 4 weeks of 4 runs, you will have a total of 40 tokens, which you can take in and redeem an item of your choosing. So if I search up the Hoplite Musket here, not in here, I need to search it up over here. If I search up the Hoplite Musket over here, and we simply go to the crafting recipes, we can use 40 Hive of Gorgons tokens to craft the Hoplite Musket. So if you get really bad luck, that there is actually a pity system, which I'm actually happy they thought of. I thought that was really nice of them from AGS's typical shit. But yeah, so there is a pity system if you do get really unlucky with the Hoplite drops. I don't think the Sharnician stuff has a pity system, but it might. It has sandworm materia. Okay, so there is also a pity system for Amulet of Sharnician. You can get sandworm materia, which is really nice. Anyways, I think that covers most of the Musket Rapier set here. Again, at the bottom, you'll always see a Discord banner. So if you have any more in-depth questions about any of the stuff I mentioned, feel free to join my Discord. I'm more than happy to answer questions. And if I'm not around or if I'm asleep, my community is also very happy to help. We've got some very big musket enthusiasts in the Discord as well that more than know what's going on. So, anyway, scrolling back to the top, if you're curious on how to navigate my website and go back pages, click on my logo and that will bring up the navigation. So we can just go back to Musket here, and then we'll click on the Void Gauntlet build, which is pretty much exactly the same as the Season 5 one, except upscaled to 725, and tacking on that Disdained Inflictions perk there to increase our dot effectiveness, like Powder Burn and Rune Glass. So same thing, we're running the Abyssal Tuments, Plague Crits, Disdained Infliction, but there's one thing you might notice, this is actually a crafted item and not a named item. So clicking on this recipe here, I didn't want to do this too much, but we'll quickly run over it. The recipe Gorgonite Musket is done again through that Gorgonite Essence, which can be done at Engineering Skill 0, but again, it requires a lot of materials. And if you want to figure out how to get these materials, simply go down that hierarchy and figure out what needs what. You need Asmodium, Mithril Ingot, so-and-so, and then you can, again, diagnose how to get so-and-so. So, again, New World Database is a fantastic tool, but figuring out how to get things done and where to get things. And that is exactly why I wanted to leave those direct links in when you click on an item on my website. Again, on the perks, you can see it is a little bit different. Obviously, we've dropped Omnidirectional Evade, which is a rapier perk, because you don't need it on the Musket Void Gauntlet, right? Also quickly mention it here, but I also did mention on the website, I thought I'd left this out, but it's good that I left it in, because if you don't watch this video, you might be a little bit clueless about what these icons mean. So clicking any item will lead to the New World database for recipes and locations. Again, stats, and it's a very similar structure to the Musket Rapier, so you can simply flow through and see what you need, or what you want to base your version of the build off. Again, if you want to branch off and try something different and use my build as a starter reference, you absolutely can. Going back here, then last but not least on the musket builds, we have the good old double range musket boltcaster, which I expect to still be one of the top builds because boltcaster is fucking broken still. Anyways, perks are a little bit different. Lasting rain of arrows, because stacking that with a disdained infliction with the 30% increase is going to be absolutely juiced, by the way. It's very similar. The new musketry's bow also got rearranged a little bit. I don't know why they did this, by the way. It's just more annoying than anything, because console players don't know the new or old tree layout. It just ultimately pisses off the new players than anything, or the old players than anything, sorry. But yeah, that is pretty much the entire boltcaster build there. Again, we're kind of skimming a little bit faster because I've broken down the sort of main pillars of everything now. Like I've showed you how to go to recipes, what's changed in general. Again, mainly being that disdained infliction perk and the acquisition of 725 gear, and like what a Gold Coast coconut is, etc. So from there on out, it's really just flicking through my website and finding out things for yourself. But I also have an individual build with gameplay coming out for every single build on my website. So every single musket build here, musket rapier, musket VG, and musket bow, will all have a build video coming out at the exact same time that will break down everything you need to know with gameplay about that build if you want to invest your gold into it. Jumping onto bow, there's a little bit less on the bow build side of things, which I accidentally double-clicked there. There's only effectively 2 bow builds in general right now. I do want to add bow spear eventually, but I still haven't figured out the best kit for that, whether to lean more into spear or bow, because I've never really tried bow spear myself, so that's something I actually have to learn, and I don't want to put out a crappy build, basically. That's not what I'm about. I like to put out performance-based builds that actually work, and that I would use. So again, stacking on that, we have the the bow rapier and the bow VG. Click on the musket will just bring you to that same musket boltcaster build. So we go to bow rapier. It is very similar to musket rapier. We're using the hoplite bow, same perks. The only thing that's different on the armor is adding on that lasting rain of arrows instead of crippling powder burn. Everything is the same. It's all abyssal, avoid harnessing, etc. And again, you check out my website if you're curious on what things are, if you want to read through it before the individual build guides go live. You absolutely can. Now, this video is starting to get a little bit long, and it was more focused on understanding my website, gear acquisition, and some of the new in-game methods and such. So that is sort of what we've covered and what I wanted to cover in this video. If you're more curious on how these specific builds perform, those videos will come out right during downtime for New World of Aeternum. This video is coming out a little bit earlier because I wanted to break down some of the core aspects of the new in-game for current and probably players that are a little bit more experienced. I also have a beginner musket guide coming out, but this musket guide is specifically intended for in-game players that know a lot of the game already and are just curious on what's new and how to get the new stuff. Because again, if you're a console player just jumping into this video, you probably don't know what the fuck's going on. You might have a little bit of an understanding, but I do have a more in-depth beginner guide coming out for you guys that don't understand the basics of like musket rotations, musket perks, musket playstyle. That has its own video that I will be uploading separate to this, also during downtime for New World of Aeternum. And again, going back here, we can also go to the bow void. It is very similar. You also have a few other tabs on my website, such as resources, where I do mention the New World Database, New World Buddy, which is very similar to New World Database with a few extra features, and New World Champ, which is another build guide website. So, that is pretty much everything I wanted to cover in one video for in-game 725 progression for the musket and bow builds. And again, we'll jump onto the beginner guides and the specific build guides in maybe about 12 hours from now. Those will be released. And yeah, I will see you guys then. Peace.